I do the drug court, and I have seen that. I have seen people that were just down in the gutter. Absolutely, the people that you would think have absolutely no use in society. And I've watched them get their kids back. I've watched them get sober and their eyes clear up, and they're not walking around like the living dead anymore.
I am here today with Phil Studenberg. Phil is an attorney, city council member, probably more things that I don't even know about. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was reading a little bit about you online. I know you as a city council person, and I know you've been an attorney, but I was interested. I read that you've done over 100 weddings.
That's true. Yeah.
I want to know about that a little bit.
It's fun. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and so they authorized me to do weddings. And I've been willing to travel, so I travel all around the county doing them. The judges don't do a very extensive wedding ceremony, and so I've been willing to let people write their own vows and do their own things. And I go out to I did a biker wedding, and the dad was handing his colors over to his new son-in-law. I've done all kinds of things like that.
That's kind of cool. I was going to ask you about that. I think the thing that I read online said something about the motorcycle gang.
Yep,
So I was going to ask you about that.
That was one of them. Yeah.
That's
and
neat.
I did some same-sex weddings, and I've done a lot of different things, and let people really form their own ceremonies. Some of them put a lot of energy into writing their vows, and some of them haven't the slightest idea how to do it, so I can help them out with the vows too.
What inspired you to do that?
I just like people. I like meeting people. I like traveling, and I think it's an important institution that marriage is, and I think it's a way for people to stand out publicly and declare their belief in each other and their love for each other. I think it's important to let them do that and to let them find their way to do it in their own way.
Mm-hmm. Is there one ceremony besides the motorcycle one that really stands out to you?
I think I like the ones that have kids. They've already had kids, either from a prior marriage or they just had kids and then got married, which seems to be the way to do things now. And I enjoy it when the kids can be part of it. And I don't have one particular couple in mind, but I do have one. I had one when I was up at the law office on Main Street. I had a couple that the guy was going off to the service, and they had to get married right before he shipped out, and so I had him come up to the office, and we didn't have another witness. They didn't bring witnesses, so I had one of my staff run down to Black Dog's Billiards and grab somebody at the bar to come up and be the witness, and we got him married, and he shipped out the next day.
Oh wow!
And it was pretty profound. It helped them to get off on the right foot too.
Mm-hmm. So. Are they still in the community? Have you ever seen them since that?
Unfortunately, I heard they got divorced when he came back. So
I was going to ask if you had any statistics for how many people you have stayed married, but
no,
you haven't tracked that.
Probably 50-50, which it is nationwide.
Yeah, so. That's probably true. Have those always been in Klamath County that you officiate?
I've traveled out of county to do a couple. I did some up in the Portland area for some friends of mine. Mm-hmm. But you got to get the clerk, the paperwork and all that from the clerk in the county where you're at.
Yeah, neat. Well, I just found that interesting, and I wouldn't have guessed that in your history. I Googled your name and thought, I'm going to ask him about this.
I haven't Googled myself, so I don't know what you found.
Well, that was the thing that stood out to me. I just found it interesting. I think the other part that I found interesting in it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the piece I was reading said you had officiated some same-sex marriages before that was even legal in this state. Yeah. You did some ceremonies.
Yeah. Well, before they had before the Supreme Court decision, we had basically domestic partnerships were the alternative. And then when the Supreme Court decision came down, authorizing it, then I was doing same-sex weddings. And I did a couple of those before the Supreme Court decision came down.
Mhm.
And those were interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting. And yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
That's really fun. And so your regular work is as an attorney.
Criminal defense attorney.
Yeah. How long have you done that?
That's all I do. 45 years. I've been here in Klamath County 48 years. I was at legal aid doing civil work when I first came here. And then I hung out a shingle and have been doing nothing but criminal defense work since then.
What drew you to that kind of work?
I was a child. Well, I'm a child I was born in the 50s. I'm a child of the 60s. And it was definitely Atticus Finch, To Kill a Mockingbird. That movie, I was probably maybe 10 years old when I saw that. And it completely inspired me. My dad was a doctor. I had a couple of doctors in my family, and they didn't pressure me to become a doc. They just wanted me to become a professional. And so I just fell in love with the law, especially at the time when the Warren Court decisions were coming down, the civil rights decisions were coming down. And I saw To Kill a Mockingbird, and I absolutely fell in love with the Atticus Finch character. I read the book first. My folks gave me the book, and then I saw the movie, and Gregory Peck was it for me. And I knew from that moment on that was my path, was to go to law school and to do service work to try to make the world a better place, to try to make equality, to help people fight the power structure and to fight for their rights and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I went straight through. I went right on through law school. This was in South Dakota where I was born. I went straight through college, law school, was a clerk for the Chief Justice of the South Dakota Supreme Court. And then that job was done. So we decided to move out to Oregon, and I passed the bar in Oregon, went to work for legal aid, and then hung out a shingle.
And what brought you to Klamath?
Well, it's kind of a sad story. What brought me to Oregon to look for jobs in Oregon was I had a brother who's a doctor in Eugene, and he died unexpectedly. I came out for his funeral in the middle of my clerkship with the Supreme Court, and I liked what I saw in Oregon, and we had decided we wanted to get out of South Dakota, mainly because of the winters. So we came out. I came out and applied for a job in Portland as a public defender, and Klamath Falls as a legal aid attorney. And we're both rural people, and Portland kind of scared me, frankly, the first time I got up there. I didn't know how to drive on the interstate. I went for the job interview in the public defender's office, and it was all behind bulletproof glass. And, it was downtown Portland. There's some pretty rough characters. And I much preferred the rural area here in Klamath Falls. It's very similar to the little town I grew up with in South Dakota. I grew up in a little town called Winter, and it's right on the edge of the Rosebud Reservation. So I had a lot of contact with Native people. I had a lot of contact. I farmed for my stepdad. I drove a tractor, so I've got used to small town life. And this appealed to me much more than it's high desert, and that's where I grew up, in the flatlands out in western South Dakota, cowboys and Indian country.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an easy transition, and we stayed here. We never left.
Mm-hmm. In the 45 years you've been here, I bet you've seen a lot of change.
Oh,
in
man.
Klamath.
This was a wild. This was a wild town when I came here. Yeah, it was. This was back in the days. There was those stories about the. If you're driving down to Reno, there was a sign apparently on the road that said, "Why bother going to Reno to divorce her? You can kill her in Klamath Falls." The domestic violence, the alcohol, the mills were just shutting down. Weyerhaeuser just went out when I came there, and that was devastating. And the restrictions on the timber industry, the environmental the spotted owl, all that stuff was going on. And so you had mill workers who had a very good middle class income, and it just fell. The bottom fell out from under it, and there was nothing for a long time except a lot of violence and a lot of fighting, a lot of racial violence, a lot of domestic violence. We witnessed that, and then we had all the Main Street. About every other building back then was a bar of some kind, and the police cracked down on all those the bars and the bar fighting. And there's one biker bar I think left, and there was a place called Spiders was the last one they shut down. I used to go looking for my clients in the bars, and it was dangerous. I remember there was one murder at the bar about a block from my office, and I had to go over there and look for clients all the time and round them up, and take them down to court. So it was a wild time. The town I grew up in, Winter, was also a pretty wild place. So I was used to. It's kind of casual violence, You just people are. You can get somebody throw a punch at you and not even know why, and this place it's quieted down a lot, and I think with help from the city council and the chamber, we are becoming, I think, an excellent community. I always thought it was a fun community, but I always liked the edge. That little edge of danger always made it more interesting. It's not like that so much anymore, except in my work and my dealing with the criminal cases. But there was a time when you had to keep your eye out on what was going on.
I can imagine. When I told my parents I was moving to Klamath Falls, they had not been to Klamath Falls since the 70s. And what you're describing is what they told me. They were like, why would you
go
move there?
Yeah.
And then they came and visited me, and it's obviously a lot different now.
I have attorney colleagues in the Valley that especially women, that just tell me they will never come to Klamath Falls because of the word of mouth, because of the reputation for violence and a lot of things. But I was struck that they would just said, I'll never go to Klamath Falls for a conference. They're not, they wouldn't come down to visit because of the reputation that it has. And I tried to be an ambassador for us and dissuade them, because I've had a pretty good life here.
Yeah. Do you feel like our reputation is changing around the rest of the state?
I think it is. I think another 10 or 20 years, I probably won't be around that long, but I think this place is going to grow into a commendable city. I think it already is, but I think that the reputation will change, and it'll get the economic growth. It'll get the people coming here. And we're already getting a lot more tourism. We're getting, and I think with the hospital and with the other businesses and the tourist industry and the hospital bring in a lot of business.
I'm curious, you mentioned what it was like when you moved here, and it was kind of rough and tumble and some casual violence. I'm curious if you may even know this because of the work that you do, but is crime up or down compared to that?
Oh, I think if you talk to the chief, it's down. I think the city police are doing a good job. The sheriffs have got a problem just because of the amount of acreage in the county, the amount of land they got to cover, and they don't have the resources. So I think the sheriff has a little tougher time. But overall, I think the crime rate is going down according to the statistics I've read.
That's what I feel like too. But sometimes people, if you're ever online,
yeah.
I mean,
people
you have all these people that are like, it's
yeah.
terrible, and I'm like, man, I feel really safe here.
And that's what that's the reputation, unfortunately. And what I have seen is most of the violence is within groups. It's not stranger to stranger. And I think when you reach the point where you fear getting struck by somebody walking down the street or getting raped in an alley in the middle of the night, the stranger to stranger stuff is what really detracts from the community. The other stuff is people that are related to each other, and we can deal with that. We do deal with it in the criminal justice system, but I'm more concerned about, and I know some of the there's a lot of talk about the homeless people and about attacking people randomly on the street, and there's not a lot of that, but there's enough of it that it causes me concern.
Mm-hmm.
Because when that starts, then you got a real problem, because people don't feel like they can go out and have a dinner or socialize. And I think we're getting a. I like what the city police are doing. I like they've got the community officers now that get to know the people that are living on the streets or that are homeless, get them some assistance. We have a real good mental health system here, I think, with KBVH, and I'm on the treatment courts as well. I do the treatment courts for drugs and mental health people, and we have an excellent support system when we have somebody that's causing trouble or getting in trouble, we get out and address it and take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
One problem is the jail being closed, because we didn't have that as a resource. Now they're back up to 90 some, I think almost 100 people, 2 pods. So we at least have a place to put people when they're acting out and doing criminal behavior. When they're doing mental health behavior, we don't have the resources quite yet, but we have a pretty good coordinated system to respond to mental health people.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I lost my train of thought with the question that I wanted to ask. You mentioned in the beginning that you knew you wanted to go into something that was service to the community, and you had the interest in law. And you've spent your life, it sounds like, in doing criminal defense law. Why do you think that's important in a community?
Well, I don't think you can have a justice system without that. There has to be prosecutors, there's got to be judges, and there's got to be defense attorneys who can speak up, because there is a presumption of innocence. The police do sometimes get things wrong. They get cases wrong, and there has to be somebody to, you got to have 12 or 6 jurors to make a decision, and they have to be able to hear both sides of the story. That there has to be, they can't just rely on the state's case. And we have to have judges that are fair, which I think we do. I think we have a good panel of judges. It's important that the defendant receives representation. And in terms of due process of law, if you don't have due process of law, then you've got a dictatorship, and you need to have. People need to know that they can be treated fairly if they're suspected of a crime,
mm-hmm.
and that they'll get their side heard. And that's my job.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of talk about the justice system in our, not just this community, but obviously nationwide. With the experience that you have, do you feel like it's still a really good system?
It's not as good as it was, because now we've gone through this crisis of there's no attorneys. We got people sitting in jail that they can't find an attorney for, and I've been part of that, trying to provide support. But the legal profession seems to be not as popular as it was. It used to be kind of like being a police officer. There was a time when that was an honorable job and drew people, and now we're finding the police are having a hard time recruiting after the George Floyd thing, and it's become the police don't get any sense that they don't get any respect. Attorneys, apparently, people aren't going into public defense work. They're generally not going to law school anymore. So that we have a real shortage right now. And I can't say that we have a great legal system, because there's a whole bunch of people that have to come into court every month and find out if they have an attorney to give them yet. And there's people sitting in jail on serious crimes that they can't find an attorney for. They're trying, and I'm working actively with the Oregon criminal defense lawyers and the legislature to try to recruit more attorneys from the law schools. But it's a long-term problem, and it's going to take a long time to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, we just have to cobble together what we can. And sometimes they're not getting as good a representation as they should.
When you, so people aren't going to law school as much as they used to, or they're not going into criminal defense
Well,
as much
that's
as they
mainly
used to?
criminal defense, but also I think law generally is not. I think it, the young people coming up what they want is they want a packet, they want a retirement fund, they want the whole deal. And in my generation of defense lawyers, we just we hung up a shingle and we would cobble together what we could. We didn't have retirement funds. We were just fighting the fight in the 60s and 70s, especially. So it's a different process. And I think the young people now are afraid to take a chance on being self-employed. It's just they would prefer to have a guaranteed salary and a nice house and retirement accounts and things like that. And we just didn't have any of that. We just went out and did the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different time now. And I think automation's going to, AI and all that's going to probably put more lawyers out of work. It's probably going to start putting judges out of work. And interpreters, they're trying more and more to mechanize and automate the legal business. That I don't think it can be done completely. There's a lot of it that can be. There's a lot of the reading and the analysis and things like that. I spend so much time watching, and with technology, when I get a criminal case, I have hours and hours and hours of surveillance video, telephone calls that I have to sit and listen to, and just the enormous amount of workload there is to do the work makes it a not very rewarding job, I don't think. So the nature of the job has changed a lot. I remember the old guard before me, Sam McKean and Ernie Bosgaz and those guys. They would just throw down and go into court and try the case. And there wasn't a lot of pretrial motions. There wasn't a lot of preparation. It was just you got your client. You go into trial in 60 days and pick a jury and try the case. And I love those guys, and I love to watch them work, and I learned a lot from them. But that's not how you do it anymore. Now it's pretrial motions and demurrers and doing all this legal research and trying to keep up with the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court decisions in itself is very hard.
It's easy to get lost. Don't know which path to take, what to post. In the social media jungle, video is king. Your kids are obsessed, your customers are addicted, we're all hooked, and social media sites prioritize videos. So when you're ready to stand out from the crowd, reach out to 40 Deuce Films. Feeling over everything.
I'm just curious how many hours do you have an idea for how many hours you spend on the usual case, the average case?
Oh, well, a misdemeanor theft too, I'd probably spend at the most 10 or 20 hours. And that's if there's a mental health issue or something. Murder cases, I spend hundreds of hours on. And you have to have a co-counsel, you have to have two attorneys. At the average case, we have Measure 11 cases, we have the sex cases. Those take a lot of time. I would say 50 to 100 hours on those. And then, your run-of-the-mill, the Dewey's can get complicated. There are a lot of things you can do with a DUI. And you could easily spend probably 30 or 40 hours working on that. So yeah, I'm still putting in 80-hour weeks, and it's and that's part of the problem with the defense. The Oregon Criminal, the OPDC, the Oregon Public Defense Commission, they have decided that defense attorneys are working too hard. They don't have a good balance of of work and play. And so then now they're trying to dictate how many cases we can take. They want to limit our caseloads, but they're also being told that they have to pay us more, the people that do indigent defense. So we're in a situation where they say you can only do this many cases, but we're going to pay you twice as much as you used to get for those cases, and the money's not there for that in large part. So they haven't figured out. I think they think they found a problem that they're trying to fix. I'm not sure that there was a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's up to. For example, in my situation, I don't have kids at home. I have a grandkid in Florida, and I don't mind working 60 or 80 hours a week because I enjoy the work, and I'm probably a workaholic, so I should be taking more time off. But on the other hand, I think they have to factor in that each attorney's different. If you have an attorney who's got 2 or 3 young kids, preschool or school age kids, they're in a different situation than a guy like me, who's, basically that's what I do. I like working the cases, and I go up to the jail on the weekends. I go up in the mornings, and I enjoy the challenge, and I still get that thrill when I get a new case handed to me, and I look, I open the police report and take a look at it, and it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes, the game's afoot, and there's always I get a little bit of a adrenaline rush. I get my heart when I get a new one. It's and then I start to intellectualize what my defense might be, what might cause somebody to do these things, and I've seen some terrible things done by my clients. Most of them were victims at one point in their lives, and then they chose to start victimizing other people as a response. And that's the other thing I love about this work is I get to work with experts. I get to know excellent psychologists, arson experts, forensics experts, anatomy. I get to study autopsies and learn about the human body, and I just have great curiosity. Most people would think that was disgusting, but I'm just curious about what makes people tick, what things they'll do to each other, and if you can find an explanation for why they do the things they do to each other. That's the intellectual challenge to me. I've always been very curious about things.
Are there a couple of things you've learned about human nature from your work that you could share?
Well,
Just in general.
one thing that's coming out now is about they've started studying the adolescent brain, and it used to be, we had a trend for a while that they would, if young people would commit serious crimes, they would treat them as adults. And now all the studies that are being done say that the adolescent brain is not fully developed until probably age 25, and that you can work with juveniles and actually change their behavior, and they don't have to be locked up for the rest of their lives for their poor decision making when they were 18 or 16. So there was a trend for a while to treat them all as adults, make them they wanted to take it down to as young as 12 and make them responsible for hurting people. And they still are responsible, but now we can see that the brain is developing, and I've seen it in a lot of my young people that turn 25 or 30, and all of a sudden they can make decisions and they're acting like adults. And there's studies about the brain and how it develops in the frontal lobe that seem to reinforce that notion. So we work a lot harder on trying to get them younger and get them, see if you can change their conduct before they get solidified into their adult behavior. And that's one of the things. I think the whole domestic violence issue is a fascinating one. In the 40 some years I've been doing this, it went for a long time. The police just didn't want to prosecute it because invariably the victim, often the woman would get beaten badly, and then she would want her husband or the guy that's paying the bills out of jail the next day and want to drop the charges. And that was the cycle for a long time. And now there's been a whole bunch of studying of domestic violence. We now have basically a domestic violence program that they have to go through to learn anger, not just anger management, but learn the dynamics of their relationships, not have contact until you are ready, when the experts say you can have contact. But the weight that the damage that does to the family, especially the economic damage, is massive. I mean, and it's a very frustrating thing to say you can't have contact with your kids, you can't have contact with your wife, you have to get out of the house, and people that are living a lower to middle class income can't afford 2 houses. They can't pay their bills, and so it puts a lot of stress on. And I'm not sure what the answer is to that. We need to obviously treat each other better. We need to learn how to not resort to violence when you're frustrated with your partner. But we've seen some. There's always the potential in domestic violence cases of a homicide. That's one person might kill the other one because they don't know how to get the system to work for them, and so they just act out of frustration. So, because of the fear of a possible homicide, we have to take every step we can in the domestic.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
I hope it wasn't too much.
No, actually, I'm always interested in it. I think about our community as a whole, and I'm always trying to think of ways to make things better or do things better. And I think it's a fascinating part of it. I've just met a lot of really great people, and some people have, drug use comes up in our community a lot, right? And I know people that feel like people can't rebound from that. Yeah. But I know people that have.
Oh, they absolutely
and
can.
I'm always curious about, are there things that a community could do better to help support people making changes in their lives? So those are
I do the drug court, and I have seen that. I have seen people that were just down in the gutter, absolutely the people that you would think have absolutely no use in society. And I've watched them get their kids back. I've watched them get sober and their eyes clear up, and they're not walking around like the living dead anymore. But with the reconciliation with the kids, especially, is when they bring their kids to drug court and show them off to the judge, and the kids are happy, and you can tell they love their dad or their mom and have missed them, and they're clinging to them. So there's no doubt in my mind that you can come out from an awful addiction. Addiction is a bad thing. I think alcohol is probably one of the worst things, but it's the one we tried to ban it, didn't work. Now we decided to make it legal and make money off of it, but it's one of the hardest ones to kick. I understand nicotine is too. I smoked for a while, but I've had my heroin addicts tell me that nicotine is harder to kick than heroin. So, yeah. But you're never going to convince me that it's not worth putting the effort into trying to save these people, because I have seen the change, and I have seen those people become leaders in their community, and leaders in the drug community, the rehab community, but also in the community at large. And I do a lot of work with the Native American, with the tribe, and I have seen the benefits of the alcohol and drug treatment that finally got restored when the tribe they got their federal benefits back. But I think there's some real leaders in the Native community doing this kind of work, and I know there are in the community at large. People I work with, I have enormous respect for the people that have come out of their addiction.
Well, moving beyond that, did you ever intend to run for office? Did you know that
Oh,
was part of your
I was a
plan?
political science. Yeah, I got majored in political science, and I was always, yeah, saw myself more as supporting another candidate. I didn't really have a lot of ambition to get elected myself, although I was elected to I was my class president, but I've always enjoyed politics and trying to articulate a vision, trying to make a community better.
Mhm. When did you run for city council? What year were you elected?
I don't remember. I would have to say it's about 8 years now.
Okay. Was there something happening that prompted you to jump in at that point in time?
No, there was a vacancy in my ward, and nobody else was putting their name in, so I went in, and there ended up at the last minute there were 2 or 3 other people put their names in. I won by about 10 votes, I think, the first time, and this last time 2 years ago I didn't even have an opponent. So apparently my ward thinks I'm
Apparently you're
doing a
doing
good
some
job.
good stuff.
But I've always liked I've been in politics at college, or I'm on several boards of directors where I serve making policy. I wish I would have done more policy work rather than frontline work in the legal business. I would like to have worked at a law school, writing articles, talking about restorative justice, doing more head work instead of having to go out there every day and beat my head against the wall, just trying to keep people out of jail and get them some help.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I'm 73. I may still get a job at a law school when I retire. I don't know. I'm not going to close the door on it. I've got a lot of experience, practical experience
Mm-hmm.
that people could benefit from, I think.
Yeah. Has it been an interesting addition to, I mean, you kind of were defending people maybe sort of against the government or
Yeah,
against that
yeah,
system, and now you're part of
yeah,
government?
yeah,
What's
yeah.
that like?
I spent a lot of time raging against the machine, yeah, and now I'm on the other side of it. But I think I can do some things from a policy standpoint, like with homelessness, with equity issues, equality issues. Equity is a sensitive word now, I guess, but I'm basically trying to get people to feel like they're part of the community and be treated the same as everybody else. And I can do that as an elected official as well as an attorney. I've got used to using the law. I didn't ever file. I wasn't like an ACLU lawyer or somebody trying to change policy. I was taking cases one at a time based on their facts. Sometimes they would have a larger impact. If you get a favorable ruling, you win an appeal on it that can affect a whole class of people. But generally, I'm dealing with individuals. And the one policy thing I did work on was I helped Edison Chiloquin get his land back up, and he was the one person who refused to take the money when the reservation was terminated. He is one of my heroes. He was one of my heroes, and he just simply he wouldn't touch the money, and it was a lot. It was $700,000-800,000 sitting in the bank, and he said no. And he started a fire, and he burned that fire through several years, all winter long up in Chiloquin. If you can imagine, he kept the fire burning. And it was a time politically when we had a very powerful legislative. We had people like Hatfield and all those guys, and they could get things done, and they went to bat for Edison. we finally got a bill passed, the Edison-Chilcoin Act, that gave him back 700 acres in trust of his land, and he's got a village up outside of Chilcoin that his grandkids are now running, and the land's still there and it's still in trust. And Jimmy Carter signed that bill on I think it was his last official act.
Oh, wow.
So but yeah, we had a powerful Al Ullman, and that was when things could get done. It seems like we have a federal legislature now that can't get anything done except fight and shut down every 6 months. But that was a time when you could really get things done, and that's something I'm really proud of. And that was only 2 or 3 years into my career that I happened to be at Legal Aid, and they were doing some of the groundwork for getting Edison's bill passed, getting the land for him, and returning the money to the government.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a one-off. But I've always worked with tribal people, but that was one that I stumbled into, and as a result, I got to meet a man that one of my heroes,
Mm-hmm.
and I've set an example for my own kids because they got to know him too.
Thank you for sharing that story. I knew about Edison-Chilcoin, obviously, but I did not. It's neat to know that you had a part in that and how that came about.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I thank you for your time today, and thank you for the service to community. No, you're good. We've been going like, I don't know, 40 or 45 minutes. So it's perfect. You shared a lot of information.
Yeah. Okay.
If I gave you a check for $250,000 to do something in the community good, what would you do with it?
I'd probably give it to the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just help the youth out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, I get solicitations from teachers, they're looking for pencils and all that. I have one school class that I support now, and it frustrates me that we have to do that we can't fund our schools adequately. And so, yeah, that would be my emphasis, I think, is on the young people in the next generation.
Nice. Tell me about one of your role models.
Well, Edison was one. Clarence Darrow was one. That was another one that got me into being a lawyer. I read all of the books about Clarence Darrow, and his autobiography was called "Attorney for the Damned," and he fought. This was in the 20s and 30s, and the labor movement and all that. There was a lot going on, and he used the law to help people live better lives, and that's what I've tried to do. Other role models, my dad's one of my role models. He was a doctor, and the polio epidemic was hitting in the 50s, and he got a hold of the Salk vaccine and refused to make any profit off of it, as did Jonas Salk himself, who's another one of my heroes. He refused to even patent his polio vaccine. And my dad frustrated the other docs in town because they were wanting to fix the prices, and he just said no, and gave it to him at the price that he had to pay for it. And now we're back talking about polio again.
I know. Here we are. Oh my gosh. And vaccines. Last question. What's one small change you think a person could do to make a difference in their community?
Be kind. Be kinder.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be so, don't let the anger go. Because it seems like everybody I encounter now is just mad at the world. And that's a lot of social media. So I'd just say be kind.
I like it. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you to our producer, 40 Deuce Films.